I will never pass up the opportunity to talk about a 2000s core horror movie. Let's do it. Tamara is about this high school girl named Tamara, who's kind of a nerd and she gets bullied a lot, even though she's played by Jenna Dewan. So, like, they try to make her look nerdy, but, like, they don't really do well. Turns out that Tamara has an interest in witchcraft. And turns out that Tamara also has a crush on her English teacher, Mr. Natoli. Tamara writes an article about how the school's athletes are all on steroids, which causes two of her bullies, Sean and Patrick, to get really mad at her. Meanwhile, we see Tamara at home perform this ritual where she tries a love spell to bind her and Mr. Natoli, but she ends up not finishing the ritual because it calls for her blood, which she does not spill. That night, Tamara gets a call from somebody who tells her that it's Mr. Natoli, and he says, "Hey, I have feelings for you. I want you to come meet me at this motel." So she goes, but when she gets there, it turns out that it's a fucking prank. And it was orchestrated by Sean and Patrick, along with Sean's girlfriend Keisha. Also, there is Chloe, who we saw earlier tries to get people to stop bullying Tamara. And there's two other boys, Jesse and Roger, who the three of them did not know that this prank was going to go down. So Tamara is obviously super upset and she sees Chloe and she feels really betrayed, so she goes at Chloe and tries to attack her. A struggle ensues during which Tamara hits her head on a table and is accidentally killed. So everybody's freaking the fuck out. Chloe wants to call the police. She's the only one. And the rest of them outnumber her, and Sean and Patrick are like, "We'll tell the police that you did this if you try to tell them anything." So eventually she agrees to bury Tamara and hide the body. However, the group is shocked when the next day a very alive Tamara walks into school. And she's no longer nerdy Tamara, she is hot Tamara. So they all get together and they're like, okay, obviously we made a mistake. She was unconscious and she must have gotten her way out of the ground. Tamara goes to talk to Roger, who was one of the boys that was there. She touches his face and he starts to have these hallucinations. Eventually, he televises this message of him to the rest of the school, where he proclaims that he is going to hear, see, and speak no evil. And as he says each one, he cuts off the corresponding part. So he cuts off an ear, a tongue, and eventually his eye, which kills him. So Tamara at this point sets her sights on Mr. Natoli and she shows up at his house. Mr. Natoli, who is married to Mrs. Natoli, who also works at the school, and we learn that the two of them are having trouble conceiving. So she tries to seduce him and he's like, absolutely fucking not. And she's like, that's fine, it's only a matter of time. The next day at school, Tamara goes to see Mrs. Natoli and basically just makes her feel like shit, and she's like, you can't even conceive and all these like young hot girls want your husband. So then this causes a fight between her and Mr. Natoli because she thinks that he told Tamara about their marriage issues. Back at home, Tamara confronts her father, who we know is a raging alcoholic, and calls him out for having fantasies of wanting to sleep with her. It's gross. And she's like, I know you love that bottle, so finish it. And he starts biting into the glass bottle that he is drinking out of. Tamara goes to a party where she runs into Sean and Patrick, and she touches both of their faces, which seemingly put them under her spell. And through like her mind control, she makes them sleep together. So Keisha walks in on this and is like, what the fuck is going on? But then Tamara corners her and touches her face as well. She references Keisha's eating disorder and like puts her under a spell, which causes her to go to the kitchen and start eating everything in sight. But eventually Chloe and Jesse find Keisha and they drag her away. As they're driving away, Chloe calls Mr. Natoli to tell him what's going on. But Keisha, who is still under Tamara's spell, calls Tamara and is like, they told Mr. Natoli everything. So Chloe turns around and just punches Keisha out and knocks her unconscious. So Chloe and Jesse go to Tamara's house and they meet Mr. Natoli there. They find Tamara's father eating glass, but they also find her witchcraft books. And they see the ritual about the love spell. And they realize that by killing her, they spilled her blood and completed the ritual. So now her soul is bound to Mr. Natoli's. So Sean and Patrick are still under Tamara's spell, and she sends them to Mr. Natoli's house to kill Mrs. Natoli. But she manages to kill them both first in self-defense. Keisha is taken to the hospital, but again, she's still under Tamara's spell too. So she gets up and chases Chloe and Jesse and stabs Jesse and he dies. And Chloe manages to once again knock her unconscious. Tamara ends up chasing Chloe and Mr. and Mrs. Natoli to the rooftop of the hospital. And she goes up to Chloe and touches her face. But when she does this, she realizes that Chloe actually was always standing up for her and never wanted any part in burying her, and she wanted to call the police. And in seeing that Chloe actually cared for her, she steps back and kind of realizes that she has become the people she's hated and trying to get revenge, and she's now a fucking monster. And she starts to slowly change back into a corpse. But eventually she comes back to herself and she looks at Mr. Natoli and is like, our souls are bound together. Like, this is not going to end until we are together. So Mr. Natoli approaches Tamara and hugs her, and he turns and looks at his wife and mouths, I love you. and he throws himself off the roof with Tamara and they both die. So he sacrificed himself to end the curse. However, it's not over because the final shot that we see is Keisha taking Tamara's spellbook out of Chloe's car and the movie ends.